Hey guys, Harris here. So this is the second year that Apple has offered a new budget iPad. Again, coming in at $329, the iPad 5th and 6th generation now, the 2018 model, is a really good iPad for a really good price. Like, it doesn't have any major compromises, it just has several minor compromises that take it from a pro level, which is the other offering Apple has, brings it down to a normal offering and makes it more affordable and usable for general people. It doesn't have any fancy features, and so Apple can keep the price down. And it's a really good device. However, there's one main focus or reason why you might want to look elsewhere. I'm going to save that for the end of the video, but for now, I'm going to compare the device that it is most similar to, at least on the current market, and that would be the 9.7-inch iPad Pro from 2016/17, because it's a really similar device, and I've gotten a lot of questions asking me to compare it, so here it is. So for starters, they have similar displays, but there's actually a big difference. So they both have beautiful Retina displays. They're colorful, they're bright, they're high resolution, the same resolution, and they're really, really good displays. However, the iPad Pro is laminated. What this means is that there is no gap between the glass itself and the display. So for instance, when you're using your Apple Pencil, it looks like you're writing directly on the pixels. Super smooth. When you're using it, when you're touching it, you get instant response, and it's great. When you're using it on the iPad 9.7, the new 2018 model, the screen feels distant. Like, it feels like there's a disconnect, a tiny disconnect between when you touch it and what's actually happening underneath, because there is a physical gap between the glass and the display. It's only an issue if you know what you're missing. If you've never used it, it's not a big deal. But if you've ever used a laminated display, in my opinion, it does make the difference. It's kind of like a Retina versus non-Retina display. Once you use it, you can't go back. Now, there have been some reviews, such as for The Verge of this new iPad, that say it's not a huge deal and you might not notice it. In my opinion, it is a big deal and definitely makes a difference. It feels like there's a holographic effect with the new iPad because there is that little bit of gap between it. With the iPad Pro, you don't have that, and it's a really nice experience to have a laminated display where the glass and the digitizer and the display are right on each other. And I think it does make a difference. Now, secondly, you have some other changes. Physically, the iPad Pro feels like a pro device. It feels like a really refined, high quality device, whereas the new iPad still is high quality materials. It's glass, it's aluminum, it looks and feels nice, and it comes in gold now. However, it is pretty thick and heavy, especially when compared to the Pro. Again, if you've never used this Pro, I guess it wouldn't be a big deal. It's not like it weighs you down, but if you're using this as a student, you're taking it around a lot with you or putting it in a keyboard case, it will add up. The iPad Pro is thinner, it's lighter, and you can definitely tell the difference when you're using the two devices. The new iPad isn't terrible, but the iPad Pro is just thinner and lighter, and it makes a big difference in day-to-day use. Other things, the speakers, there are double the amount of speakers on the iPad Pro. It makes it for a much more immersive experience when you have audio coming from both sides, a little bit louder, a little bit higher quality. The 2018 iPad doesn't have bad speakers and it still sounds good, but it's going to be mono audio coming from one side. It's going to be one directional audio versus the stereo audio on the iPad Pro, and that's, again, just kind of an experience difference, something that's a little bit more immersive on the iPad Pro. In terms of the camera, you are getting a better camera on the iPad Pro. You're also getting the flash. It's actually a big difference. You're getting 4K video and slow-mo, and a decent sensor, the iPhone 6s sensor with flash, like I said, on the iPad Pro, versus an older camera without flash and lower resolution on the old iPad. So if camera matters to you, that is a difference. Now, one area that doesn't make a big difference is performance. Because this is a newer device, it has the Apple A10 chip, whereas the iPad Pro has the A9X chip. They're going to be very, very similar in day-to-day performance. They both have 2 GB of RAM, and they're going to be able to do similar tasks, which is to say they can multitask just fine. Performance is good. They're not going to be screaming or blistering fast, but they are good day-to-day usage. Now, of course, the iPad Pro also has the smart connector. So for instance, I can use it with my Logitech Create keyboard case, snaps on instantly, connects, no Bluetooth required. Not a huge deal, you can still use Bluetooth, but it is a convenience of the iPad Pro that it does have its smart connector. Now, the big new similarity of these two devices is Apple Pencil support, and that's what Apple is really advertising. Both devices can use the Apple Pencil, and the experience is going to be very similar. There is the difference between the laminated versus non-laminated, but in terms of usage, despite that little bit of, again, distance that you have between the pencil and Surface and what's actually showing up, they're both really good, and if you want to use either of them, you're not going to have any problems with latency or lag. So both are good for note-taking, drawing, etc. Okay, so I've given you all the reasons why the iPad Pro is better than the new iPad, and that's kind of a given. It's a Pro versus not a Pro. It's a device that initially cost $650 versus a device that costs half of that now and even cheaper for education. However, it's not always going to be a lot more expensive. I actually bought this iPad Pro refurbished, and refurbished basically just means it maybe was taken out of its package once, it maybe was used for display purposes, whatever it may be, it's gonna function fully, perfectly. Mine was even perfect condition. It looked like it never been touched. On Amazon, you can get the iPad Pro refurbished for just a little bit more than the new iPad. You can get it at higher storage capacities, and you get all the added features for maybe just a little bit more money. Now, if what you're wanting is just a brand new iPad, you want to get it from the Apple Store, no questions, get it, go. Sure, this new iPad in 2018 is gonna serve you well and it's gonna be good. However, if you're wanting a lot more features and maybe you have a little bit more budget, definitely look at this iPad Pro. Refurbished is always a decent option. And even if you don't want to go refurbished, if you want to go new, you can get this for maybe $100 more with all the features that I mentioned. I think it is worth it, especially if you're gonna throw on a keyboard case with it, with a smart connector like this. So the new iPad is a good device and it does stack up well against the iPad Pro. However, it is lacking in a few key areas such as the speaker, the camera, the portability, the smart connector, and the display, things like that. So if you want to go refurbished like I did with mine, I think you won't regret it. I'll leave links down in the description if you want to check out some refurbished options, or of course you can buy it new. All of them are going to be good options. If you have a little bit more money to spend and you're willing to do that, I think it's worth it. Otherwise, if you're not looking to get refurbished, you're not looking to spend a little bit more money, go for the new iPad. It's a good option and I think that you will like it. But either way, I think these are two great devices at two similar price points, similar performance, different characteristics. Now, no matter which iPad you get, or if you don't get one at all, one thing you can definitely benefit from, and a service I use every day now, is a VPN. Now, NordVPN isn't sponsoring this, but they set me up with a referral system, as well as a coupon code for you guys. You can get 77% off of a 3-year plan, which brings it down to a crazy affordable price. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and basically what it does is makes your connection, your internet connection, always secure and private so that nobody is seeing your data. It works in China and Middle Eastern countries. There's over 3,000 servers, super fast, works on mobile, desktop, and there's military-grade encryption. So if you want something to secure your internet connection, check out NordVPN down below. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.